I'm here to present my insider's guide to autism. I've been living for 27 years with autism, and now I spend my time trying to help out those who are newly diagnosed at Easter Seals Crossroads by providing speech therapy. So a little bit about me. I have a master's degree in speech pathology, and I am fluent in French, Spanish, and German. I'm also working on learning American Sign Language, Mandarin, Chinese, and Farsi, which is the Iranian language. And I've really enjoyed studying abroad. That was my favorite thing to do, just to experience a new culture and explore what that was like. I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome and obsessive compulsive disorder when I was 21. I just started grad school, and I'd spent a really long time wondering, I'm smart enough, why can't I engage with other people the way they interact with each other? I went to our student orientation, and there was this kind of a party going on, and everybody was talking to each other, and I thought, okay, this is the time that I'm going to be able to interact with them. I'm going to be just like one of the girls. And so I go in, and the first thing I said was, did you know that the blind cavefish has no eyes? Well, I thought that you just had to say the most interesting thing you could think of, because people would always come up to me and be like, hey, have you seen like the latest movie or whatever? I'm like, why would I have seen that? I don't care. So I'm glad you could just say whatever you wanted. When I was little, what I was really into was words and language and letters, and that started from even before I'm able to remember. My mom remembers reading to me, and I wasn't really looking at the pictures in the book, I was looking at the text underneath. And there was a big scripty capital letter, and I pointed at it, and I'm like, what's that? And she goes, it's a capital letter T. And she's thinking, why is my 14-month-old baby asking about letters in a book? And I kept asking until I learned them all. And a few months later, she's carrying me out to the car, and I start chanting, 2 T's, 2 T's, 2 T's. And she's like, what? She looks on the wall, there's 2 squeegees hanging there that look like 2 capital letter T's. And she thought, huh, that's interesting. I wonder why. And this is my video that was aired on CNN. I made this, I think, 3 years ago. I saw that there was a prompt for, like, what's life like? What's everyday life like with autism? And I thought, well, you see a lot about kids, especially boys, and so I wanted to give an older and kind of unique perspective. I think there's a play button at the bottom.
My name is Catherine Muir. I have Asperger's syndrome.
Me llamo Catherine. Ich heiße Catherine. Tengo el autismo und ich habe Autismus. J'ai l'autisme.
Okay, so that's a little bit about me. Now I'm going to answer the question, what is autism? Autism is a brain condition that affects how a person communicates, interacts with others, and interprets sensory information. it's a spectrum disorder, so there's a wide range of what people on the spectrum will be like. Some people are like me, are very verbal, can't stop talking, nothing you can do will make me be quiet. Or you can find people who are nonverbal and may not use spoken language to communicate. They might use sign language or pictures. Visual strengths, visual skills are a strength, and so is memory. I know kids who can remember all the dialogue to every episode of Thomas the Tank Engine ever made. And that is what I try to use when I work with therapy with them. I try to show them, well, how can we use this strength that you're good at to help you kind of integrate yourself into the neurotypical or non-autistic world. So I describe autism as a disorder of sensitivity or a condition of sensitivity. There's physical sensitivity to sounds, smells, touch. Like me with the headphones, I know a lot of kids who eat only 1 or 2 foods initially because they can't handle the different textures very well. So we have to work on feeding and, well, how can we alter the texture of other foods so that they can eat a more varied diet. There's also sensitivity to change. I remember sitting in elementary school and I would just cry all day long if I knew there was going to be a fire drill. That was like the worst thing ever. So I'd sometimes try to hide or get out of the building before the fire drill started, but they'd always catch me and bring me back to the room and tell me not to do that. So that's something I try to be sensitive to when I'm working in schools, like find a way to, how can we involve kids on the spectrum in the fire drill without making them feel like their heads are exploding. And emotional sensitivity, people often seem to think of people on the spectrum as being unemotional or not being sensitive to others' feelings or invested, and that's just not true. We express our sensitivity to others in a different way. We might not be able to think of anything to say if you tell us something upsetting that's happened to you, but that doesn't mean we don't feel upset about it. So being ready for some different social reactions. So ways to interact a little more easily with people on the spectrum. I try to think of interactions between people with autism and people without autism as being almost an intercultural interaction. We have our own ways of thinking and our own ways of doing things, and I don't see one as being better than the other. They're just different. And most people on the spectrum, I can definitely say this for myself, have a stronger desire to communicate than we are naturally able to. It took a lot of work for me to be able to even go back and forth on a topic a few times with another person if it was a topic that I didn't pick. If it was a topic I picked, I'd just talk for hours at a time. So getting a balance. And everyone loves to talk about themselves, and people on the spectrum are no exception. When I meet kids who have trouble getting started or have limited language, I say to them something like, hey, I know you like trains. Have you ever ridden on one before? And bringing that interest into a real context, not just reciting facts about trains, but talking about experiences. And that opens up a lot more communication. Watching sarcasm, that can sometimes go over our heads. My mom called me on the phone one day when I was walking to the bus stop, and I told her where I was, and she said, "Oh, are you on the road?" And I got all mad and I was like, no, I'm on the sidewalk. Do you think I'm that stupid? So she told me no, she knew what I meant. But sarcasm and non-literal language like that can be kind of confusing. Activity-driven communication helps. That means if you're working on something and you have something in front of you to talk about, that helps fuel the conversation. You don't have to, on your own, just think, oh, well, what could we talk about? Could we talk about blind cavefish? No, we tried that. That didn't go over too well. So it gives you something to draw from. And don't be afraid of silence. Sometimes it just takes a couple minutes for the person to think or come up with something, or just to process what's going on and just breathe. Okay, so there's lots and lots of supports available for people on the spectrum. There's sensory supports, they can have occupational therapy, there's, I've got a picture of a body sock. It's like this stretchy fabric thing you can get inside, and you can, kind of like an amoeba, just move around in it. It feels really cool. There's keeping consistent routines. You can use visual schedules to help kind of show the order things are going to happen so there's no surprises. Language can be helped with speech therapy. If someone's nonverbal, they can communicate using a device. It's like a computer. They push the pictures and it talks for them. And social, there's social therapy. They could have guide animals, and there are lots of peer supports so that they can have the social experience that a typical child would have. That's the body sock. They're really fun. We have one at my office. We've suspended it from the ceiling so you can kind of climb into it like a cocoon and spin around. Sometimes I do that when there's nobody else in the gym. This is an example of a social story. It's got pictures and text, and you can kind of go over it with the person so that they know what they can expect to happen in this situation. When I get mad, I feel like hitting, but when I hit, it makes someone else feel this way. Understanding someone else feeling sad based on something you did is kind of difficult to comprehend, so it helps to see it visually. And my mom still kind of does this with me. Like I had to go to the motor vehicle bureau to get my registration renewed. She's like, okay, there's going to be a really long line, and then you're going to go up to the counter, and she kind of gave me a run through of what I could expect to happen so I wouldn't be taken off guard when I was asked something. And this is an example of a communication device, or a talker, as we call them. So they can push the pictures, and then the text will appear in the line up top, and it'll say it for them. Okay, so these are some tricks that I've picked up along the way that things I found helpful. I have a really hard time with just like, oh, let's get together and hang out. Like, yeah. Okay, what does that mean? So I like to know kind of how long I can expect to be somewhere, kind of what's going to happen. So I've joined a dance class. It's the same time every week. I go there and I see the same people, and again, it's an activity that we're all into, so we can talk about it, and it's not going to be just everyone else talking about something that I don't know about or understand. Seamless and tagless clothing, I'm so grateful that that's becoming more popular now. I like toe socks because they don't have that seam that gets under your foot. And I also don't like the tags in the back of shirts and stuff, so it's just nice to have clothes that are a little more comfortable. Online dating. If it weren't for that, I don't think I would have been on a date since high school. And it's so much easier to communicate through text first and then feel like I know the person a little bit before I meet them. So that helps me just, I feel like get a little ahead of the competition. And mystery shopping, I don't know if anybody's done this or heard of this, but you go online and you can register for these jobs. You go to different stores and you have an interaction with the employees who work there to evaluate how they're providing service. And you get paid to do it and you get paid to keep what you bought there. So I'm like, it gives me a chance to practice what I need to work on. I also get paid to do it, so it's kind of handy. I love to watch Divorce Court. And Judge Lynn Butler on Divorce Court once said, "You gotta learn to work your weird." And I really liked that phrase, because before I was diagnosed, I knew I was weird, I just didn't know why. Now that I know why, I know what to work on, and I know how to turn that weirdness on to do what I want to do. So early diagnosis, always better if it's possible. If your child or friend's child, anybody you know, if there's a concern, the earlier the better. Redefining success. A lot of parents, look, they want to have some bragging rights, like, oh, my child's a lawyer. But maybe it doesn't, but there are a lot of lawyers who hate their job and aren't happy. If I can get my students, my therapy kiddos, into a position where they can have a data entry job because they love computers, I'm just thrilled. I want to get them to where they want to be, not necessarily where society says they need to be. And redefining happiness. Watching TV growing up, I always felt this pressure to be like the people on Friends, you know, where they're always going out and interacting with people and doing stuff, and I don't want to do that. And I felt like I should want to, but if I don't want to, then why bother? I can be happy chilling at home with my rabbit or going swimming or whatever. It doesn't have to be in a big group all the time just because society says that's what makes people happy. And I made a question slide. I don't know if we have time for questions, but I just always tack those on at the end whenever I give a presentation. So I will end there. Thank you guys for having me and listening.